Ladies and gentlemen, we often hear that the key to success lies in big, bold leaps. But what if I told you that the real magic happens in the small steps, the tiny moments that we often overlook? Imagine, just for a moment, if you could improve yourself by just 1% every single day. It may sound small, but let me tell you, those little increments compound into something extraordinary over time. We all face challenges, obstacles, and those dark days when it feels like we're not moving forward at all. But it's in those moments that we must remind ourselves of this simple truth. Progress is progress, no matter how slow. The 1% rule isn't about overnight success or achieving perfection. It's about taking that one step forward, no matter how small, and staying consistent. Improvement of 1% every day compounds over time. In the fast-paced world we live in, we often find ourselves yearning for quick results, fast fixes, and instant gratification. However, real, meaningful growth doesn't work that way. The concept of improving by just 1% every day might seem insignificant at first, but it's this very approach that can yield remarkable transformations over time. When you improve by just 1% daily, it's not just about the tiny progress you make in a single day, but the cumulative effect of those small, consistent changes over weeks, months, and even years. Imagine for a moment that you're taking small, deliberate steps forward in any area of your life, whether it's learning a new skill, improving your health, or working towards a personal goal. At first glance, the progress made each day may not seem groundbreaking, but here's the key. Over time, these small improvements begin to stack up. The 1% gains you make each day compound on each other, creating exponential growth. This is the power of consistency and patience. When you commit to making small improvements daily, you aren't just adding up the increments, you're multiplying them in ways that can lead to significant changes down the line. To put this into perspective, think of compound interest in the world of finance. The interest you earn on your savings grows exponentially, not in a straight line. The more you save and the longer you leave it to grow, the greater the returns. Similarly, when you improve yourself by just 1% a day, you're setting yourself up for a future where the small changes you made will have a greater, more profound impact than you initially anticipated. The key is consistency. It's about committing to improvement every single day, no matter how small the action may seem. The beauty of this approach is that it's sustainable. Many of us are guilty of aiming for big, dramatic changes and burning ourselves out in the process. We set unrealistic expectations, overexert ourselves, and then become frustrated when we don't see immediate results. But by focusing on small, manageable improvements, you create a system where progress doesn't overwhelm you. You're not setting yourself up for failure because you're not overcommitting. Instead, you're making gradual progress in a way that is both achievable and sustainable. One of the greatest advantages of improving by 1% every day is that it makes the process of change feel less intimidating. Often the thought of tackling a big goal or making a major change in our lives can feel overwhelming. But if we break it down into smaller, more manageable steps, it becomes much more attainable. Every small win counts. The act of getting 1% better every day creates a mindset of continuous improvement rather than a fixation on achieving perfection. It's not about doing everything right at once. It's about improving one step at a time. And over time, those steps add up to something remarkable. This approach also nurtures resilience. On days when progress feels slow or when challenges arise, it can be easy to lose motivation. But by focusing on just just improving by 1% each day, you're reminding yourself that setbacks and obstacles are part of the journey. They're not signs of failure, but opportunities to learn and grow. When you only need to make tiny improvements each day, you begin to build the mental toughness to persevere, even when things aren't going as planned. Furthermore, the idea of improving by 1% encourages you to focus on what really matters. It's easy to get distracted by all the noise around us, the endless to-do list, the comparison to others, the pressures of social media and external expectations. But when you commit to improving by just 1% each day, you start to focus inward on what you can control, on the small actions that will lead to personal growth. Over time, this creates a sense of purpose and direction in your life as you shift your focus from the distractions around you to the consistent, meaningful actions that will bring you closer to your goals. As you improve by 1% every day, you'll begin to notice changes, subtle at first, but increasingly significant as time goes on. The small habits, skills, and attitudes you develop will eventually lead to bigger, more transformative changes. It's a process that requires patience and persistence, but the results speak for themselves. So while the idea of improving by just 1% a day may seem simple, it's a powerful tool for achieving lasting growth. Progress is made through small, consistent steps. In a world that often glorifies monumental achievements, it's easy to forget that real, lasting progress isn't about making huge leaps, but rather about taking consistent, incremental steps forward. The idea of progress through small steps might seem trivial or insignificant at first glance, but if we take the time to consider it, we'll realize that all the greatest accomplishments are built upon the foundation of these smaller actions. When we look at success stories, we tend to focus on the end result, the moment when everything falls into place. What we forget, however, is the quiet, behind-the-scenes work that led to those moments. Those who achieved great things didn't simply wake up one day with all the answers or skills they needed. They worked every day, bit by bit, improving themselves, refining their skills, and pushing through obstacles no matter how minor they seem. Each step, no matter how small, contributed to their overall progress. The beauty of this approach is that it takes away the overwhelming pressure of needing to make drastic changes immediately. It allows you to focus on manageable goals, creating a sense of direction without the anxiety of an unattainable target. By taking small steps, you're able to maintain momentum without feeling burnt out. This type of progress is sustainable. It's not about doing everything perfectly right away, but about building a habit of improvement, one action at a time. There's also a level of humility in this approach. The small, consistent actions remind us that progress is not about flaunting big successes, but about focusing on self-improvement. When we think of progress in terms of tiny, everyday steps, it becomes less about impressing others and more about personal growth. Each day becomes an opportunity to improve, and those improvements, though small, accumulate over time. The beauty of small, consistent steps is that they build resilience. When faced with challenges, it's easy to become disheartened, especially if the road ahead seems long and arduous. But by focusing on incremental improvements, we learn to overcome setbacks with grace. Small steps allow us to pace ourselves, to recognize our limits, and to push through them gradually. We become more equipped to handle adversity because we've learned to celebrate the small wins and understand that setbacks don't define us, they're just part of the journey. In a world that celebrates instant gratification, it can be hard to remain patient when things aren't progressing as quickly as we'd like. But real sustainable progress doesn't happen overnight. It's a slow and steady process. Each day that you take small steps forward, whether it's learning a new skill, improving your fitness, or working on a personal goal, you're contributing to your long-term success. The small things matter more than we give them credit for. They build momentum, strengthen our character, and reinforce the idea that progress is a marathon, not a sprint. It's easy to get discouraged when you don't see immediate results. After all, who doesn't want to see fast change? But when you look at the bigger picture, it's clear that lasting progress isn't born from sudden, dramatic changes. It's the result of daily, consistent effort. So every time you feel like giving up because you haven't achieved your goal yet, remind yourself that the small steps you're taking today are adding up. The impact of these actions will be more visible in the future, but they're still essential in creating the foundation for success. Small steps are powerful because they allow you to build the kind of discipline and determination needed to reach your goals. You're not waiting for the perfect moment or the ideal set of circumstances. You're working with what you have right now and making the best of it. This approach builds a sense of ownership over your progress as you begin to realize that the responsibility for improvement lies within you, not in external factors. By focusing on small daily actions, you're actively shaping your own future, one step at a time. Growth happens even when results aren't immediately visible. In today's fast-pacing world, we have become accustomed to instant gratification, whether it's a quick response to a message, a rapid solution to a problem, or the immediate results of a workout. We expect things to happen quickly. This mindset often leads to frustration when progress doesn't seem as fast or visible as we'd like it to be. But what if I told you that growth is often happening beneath the surface in ways that aren't immediately apparent to the eye? Sometimes the most significant progress is the kind that takes time to show itself. When you embark on a journey of self-improvement, it's easy to become discouraged when you don't see immediate results. You might be putting in hours of work, whether it's learning a new skill, improving your fitness, or making positive changes in your life, and yet the progress may seem elusive. The scale doesn't move, your skills don't seem sharper, and things don't feel any different. It's easy to think that all your effort is going to waste. But the truth is, growth isn't always visible on the surface. In fact, some of the most important growth happens quietly, behind the scenes, where it's building the foundation for future success. Think about the process of growing a tree. At first, when a seed is planted in the ground, there's no visible sign of growth. The seed is buried in the soil. And it might seem like nothing is happening. But underneath the surface, the seed is sprouting roots, preparing itself for the day when it will break through the earth and begin to grow upward. This underground process is vital to the tree's survival and strength, even though it's invisible to the human eye. Similarly, in our own journeys of growth, the work we do when there's no immediate payoff is just as important as a visible progress. Sometimes we need to trust the process, even when we don't see immediate results. Growth is a gradual process, and real change takes time. The improvements we make today might not be noticeable tomorrow, but that doesn't mean they aren't happening. It's easy to become disheartened when we don't see instant progress, but the small, consistent actions we take every day are like building blocks. Even if the results aren't apparent, they're adding up. Every step, every effort, every moment of learning is contributing to our development, whether or not we can see it yet. In fact, the lack of immediate results often indicates that something deeper is happening. Just like a plant developing its roots before it grows above the ground, our personal growth may be taking place in ways that are not outwardly visible. Perhaps you're building mental resilience, developing patience, or gaining deeper self-awareness. These internal changes aren't always visible, but they are essential for long-term growth. Over time, when you look back, you will see that all the seemingly small, invisible efforts led to something far greater than you could have imagined. This idea of growth happening invisibly is crucial because it helps us shift our focus from external validation to internal progress. In a world that constantly pressures us to show results and prove our worth, it's easy to forget that some of the most significant growth happens in private, in moments when no one is watching. The true essence of growth lies not in immediate outcomes, but in the transformation that occurs over time, in the way we evolve as individuals, even when it's not obvious to the outside world. When you understand that growth doesn't always show up right away, you can release the pressure to be perfect or to see quick results. This shift in perspective allows you to embrace the journey, to recognize that every step, even the ones that don't seem to lead anywhere, is part of a much larger process. Whether it's mastering a skill, building a relationship, or simply improving yourself, the work you put in now will bear fruit later, even if you can't see it right away. In those moments when you feel like your efforts are going unnoticed, or when you're unsure whether you're making any progress at all, remind yourself that growth is happening. It's just a matter of time. The foundation you're laying today will support the success and transformation of tomorrow. Keep going even when the results aren't visible. Trust that the seeds you're planting will eventually bloom into something remarkable. Stay consistent even on tough days. There's a universal truth about progress that often gets overlooked. The road to success isn't always smooth. There will be moments when everything feels difficult, when motivation is nowhere to be found, or when challenges seem insurmountable. It's easy to throw in the towel when things get tough. After all, it's human nature to avoid discomfort. But the key to long-term success doesn't lie in how we perform on our best days. It lies in our ability to keep going even when the odds seem stacked against us. Consistency, especially during tough times, is the difference between those who succeed and those who give up too soon. It's easy to be motivated when everything is going well. The excitement of starting a new project or achieving the first few milestones fuels our determination. But what happens when things get difficult? What happens when setbacks occur or when progress seems to slow down? It's during these tough days that our commitment to consistency is truly tested. It's easy to let doubt creep in, to question whether our efforts are worth it, or to feel like we're not getting anywhere. Yet, it's in those moments that consistency becomes even more crucial. It's the willingness to keep showing up day after day, even when you don't feel like it, that ultimately leads to success. Think of consistency like building a muscle. When you first start, the progress might be slow and the effort might feel like a struggle. But over time, with consistent practice, your endurance builds and things start to feel easier. The same applies to any area of life. Whether you're trying to improve your health, learn a new skill, or work toward a long-term goal, consistency allows you to push through the challenges. The key is to recognize that every effort, even the smallest, counts. Even on the days when you feel like you're barely keeping up, your persistence is laying the groundwork for future success. The act of showing up despite the obstacles is what keeps you moving forward. It's easy to think that success is about moments of brilliance, those bursts of effort that bring you closer to your goal. But the truth is, those moments are few few and far between. What really drives progress is the quiet, steady effort that happens when no one is watching. It's the work done behind closed doors, the hours of practice that go unnoticed, and the quiet dedication to showing up each day that creates real growth. While others may be waiting for the perfect moment to start, you're already taking small steps every single day, building a foundation of progress that will eventually pay off. Consistency also teaches resilience. Life is unpredictable. Things will not always go according to plan, and obstacles will arise when you least expect them. It's in these tough times that we're forced to dig deep and find the strength to keep going. The more you stay consistent, the more you build your ability to weather these challenges. You develop mental toughness, the ability to keep going when things get hard, to push through even when motivation wanes, and to trust in the process. This resilience is a crucial part of personal growth. It helps you develop the mindset needed to keep striving for your goals, no matter how difficult the journey may seem. Another key aspect of consistency during tough days is that it reinforces discipline. It's easy to feel inspired when things are going well, but true discipline comes from continuing to work even when that inspiration fades. When you commit to showing up every day, even when you're tired or discouraged, you are building the habit of discipline. It's in these small, consistent actions that you create the structure that supports success. Over time, this discipline becomes second nature, and you no longer rely on motivation to get things done. It's not about waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect mood. It's about consistently doing the work, regardless of how you feel. When you stay consistent, even on tough days, you also begin to build a sense of trust in yourself. You prove to yourself that you can handle adversity, that you can overcome obstacles, and that you have the inner strength to keep going when things get hard. This self-trust becomes a powerful motivator. The more you show up, even when it's difficult, the more you believe in your ability to succeed. This belief becomes the fuel that propels you forward on the days when the going gets tough. Consistency during tough times often leads to breakthroughs. When you continue to push through the challenges, even when the results aren't immediately obvious, you're setting yourself up for a moment of progress. The struggles you face are often precursors to significant breakthroughs. The key is to stay the course, trusting that your consistent efforts will eventually lead to the results you desire. Just as a plant pushes through the soil after a long period of growth underground, your persistence will eventually bear fruit, even if you don't see it right away. Focus on what you can control and improve today. In a world filled with distractions and constant noise, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters, what we can actually control in our lives. We often get caught up in the things outside of our influence, the actions of others, the economy, the state of the world, and countless other factors that feel out of our hands. We waste valuable energy and mental space worrying about things we cannot change. But the truth is, the only thing we truly have control over is ourselves, our actions, and how we respond to the world around us. The key to improvement, then, lies in focusing on what we can control and taking small steps to improve every day. This focus on what we can control shifts our mindset. Instead of feeling helpless in the face of external factors, we begin to realize that we have the power to shape our own lives. The choices we make, the habits we cultivate, the decisions we take, and the attitude we adopt all fall within our control. By focusing on these areas, we can begin to steer our own lives in the direction we want to go. It's about taking responsibility for the things that we can influence, rather than dwelling on the things that are beyond our reach. When we focus on what we can control, we also learn to let go of the need for perfection. Perfectionism often arises from the desire to control every aspect of our lives, to make everything just right. But this pursuit of perfection is often paralyzing. It can make us hesitate, second guess our decisions, and even prevent us from taking action altogether. However, if we shift our focus to what we can control, such as our effort, our attitude, and our actions, we free ourselves from the pressure of perfection. We understand that small, consistent improvements are more valuable than aiming for an unattainable ideal. It's in the process of focusing on improvement rather than perfection that real growth happens. Focusing on what we can control also helps us to stay grounded in the present moment. It's easy to become consumed by past failures or to worry about the future, but these distractions take us away from what we can do right now. By focusing on what we can control today, we shift our attention to the present moment where true progress happens. We stop waiting for the perfect moment to start or for external circumstances to align, and instead we begin to take action today. This shift allows us to break free from the cycle of procrastination and inaction, which is often fueled by our worries about things outside our control. When we focus on today, we create a sense of urgency and purpose in our actions. We begin to understand that the present moment is all we really have. Tomorrow is uncertain and yesterday is gone. So the only time that matters is now. This mindset encourages us to make the most of each day, to focus on the small steps we can take right now to improve ourselves and our lives. The power of this approach lies in its simplicity. Instead of becoming overwhelmed by the enormity of our goals, we break them down into manageable pieces, each one focusing on what we can control in the here and now. In addition, focusing on what we can control encourages a sense of autonomy and empowerment. When we start taking responsibility for the things within our power, we stop seeing ourselves as passive victims of circumstance. We realize that we are active participants in shaping our own lives. This sense of control over our actions gives us confidence and self-belief. It makes us realize that while we can't always control the outcomes or the obstacles we face, we can control how we approach them. This sense of agency helps us to keep moving forward even when things get tough. Focusing on what we can control leads to a sense of clarity and direction. With so many distractions in today's world, it's easy to lose focus and become scattered. By focusing on what we can improve today, we simplify our lives. We narrow our attention to the things that truly matter, which allows us to direct our energy and effort in a purposeful way. When we make the decision to focus on today and on what we can control, we give ourselves the clarity needed to stay on track and move toward our goals. In doing so, we also start to build momentum. Every small action, no matter how insignificant it seems at the time, contributes to progress. The more we focus on the things we can control, the more we begin to build a habit of taking action. These small actions compound over time, and eventually they lead to significant improvements. By focusing on what we can control today, we establish a rhythm that propels us forward, and we begin to see the fruits of our consistent efforts. Small efforts lead to significant transformation. In a world where instant results are often idolized, it's easy to forget that real change is a gradual process. We tend to overlook the power of small actions, assuming that only dramatic efforts lead to meaningful transformation. But the truth is that lasting change doesn't come from sporadic large gestures. It comes from consistently making small efforts day in and day out. These seemingly minor steps taken over time compound and create a transformation that is both profound and sustainable. The beauty of small efforts is that they are manageable. When we think about making big changes in our lives, we often feel overwhelmed. The task seems too large, too daunting, and we begin to question whether it's even worth attempting. But when we break that big task into smaller bite-sized actions, it becomes more approachable. The key is to focus on what we can do right now rather than getting bogged down by the enormity of the goal. Every little step you take is an investment in your future, and even if that step feels small at the time, it adds up over time. Small efforts create momentum. One of the challenges of making meaningful change is maintaining motivation. It's easy to get excited at the beginning of a new project or goal, but over time, that initial excitement often fades. By focusing on small, consistent actions, you can keep the momentum going. Each time you take a small step forward, you build a sense of accomplishment. That sense of progress, no matter how tiny, fuels your drive to keep going. The more consistent you are with these small efforts, the more momentum you build, which eventually carries you toward bigger achievements. In addition, small efforts help to establish good habits. When we try to make large sweeping changes, we often set ourselves up for failure. Trying to change too much too quickly can lead to burnout or frustration. But when you start with small, sustainable efforts, you're more likely to stick with them. For example, rather than attempting to overhaul your entire diet overnight, you could start by making one healthier food choice each day. Over time, this small change becomes a habit, and that habit becomes part of your lifestyle. These small efforts, repeated over time, form the foundation of lasting change. Small efforts teach patience. In a world that craves instant results, it's easy to become discouraged when we don't see immediate progress. But transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process that requires time and persistence. Small efforts help to shift our perspective, teaching us that progress is not always visible in the short term. What's important is that we continue to show up, consistently putting in the effort, trusting that over time the results will come. This patience is a crucial part of the growth process because it allows us to persevere through setbacks and challenges without giving up. One of the most important aspects of small efforts is that they lead to long-term sustainability. Large changes are often temporary. We might be able to push ourselves to achieve something big, but without the foundation of smaller, consistent actions, that change is often short-lived. Small efforts, on the other hand, are sustainable. When you focus on making small improvements every day, you're more likely to maintain those improvements in the long run. It's the daily practice, the steady work, and the commitment to small steps that ultimately lead to lasting transformation. These small efforts also allow for flexibility and adaptability. Life is unpredictable, and circumstances often change in ways we didn't expect. When you're focused on making small, manageable improvements, you can adjust your approach without feeling like you've failed. If one method doesn't work, you can try another. Small efforts are not about perfection, they're about progress. They give you the freedom to adapt and try new things, knowing that even if something doesn't go according to plan, you've still made progress in the right direction. Small efforts have a powerful cumulative effect. While one small step might not seem significant, when those steps are repeated every day, they begin to accumulate. Over time, this accumulation leads to significant transformation. The progress may not always be immediately obvious, but when you look back over weeks, months, or years, you'll realize how far you've come. This is the power of consistency. Every small effort effort counts. And over time, they add up to create the transformation you're seeking. Small efforts also promote a sense of control. In a world that can feel chaotic and out of control, focusing on small, actionable steps gives you something tangible to work on. It's a way of taking charge of your own growth. Each effort, no matter how small, is a step in the right direction, and it's something you have control over. This sense of control is empowering because it reminds us that while we may not be able to control everything in our lives, we do have the power to make small changes that lead to big results. In the end, small efforts are the building blocks of transformation. They are the key to sustainable change, the foundation of new habits, and the fuel for long-term success. While the world often celebrates big achievements, it's the small, consistent efforts that create lasting transformation. Every tiny step you take today brings you closer to the person you want to become tomorrow. And it's in those small efforts, repeated every day, that true growth happens.